The dusty winds of Talon 7 swept across the spaceport like restless spirits. Cargo ships lined the landing pads, their hulls gleaming under the twin suns. People hurried from one terminal to another, some carrying supplies, others guiding strange alien creatures with sleek, segmented bodies. The colony was alive, a chaotic blend of humans and aliens, all carving out lives on this wild frontier planet. Among the crowd, Marla stepped cautiously from the shuttle. Her heart thumped with nervous energy. The heavy strap of her travel bag dug into her shoulder, but she barely noticed. She was here to start a new life, far away from the whispers and judgments of her home planet. But even in this far corner of the galaxy, she could feel eyes on her, quietly measuring, quietly judging. "Look at her," muttered a young woman nearby, her voice sharp. "Doesn't she stick out?" Marla kept walking, her head held high despite the sting of the words. She had long since learned that strength was not about fitting in but about standing tall, even when the world tried to push her down. The spaceport was buzzing with life. Hover carts zipped by, carrying crates of exotic fruits and mechanical parts. Drones whirred above, scanning arrivals and departures. Strange alien merchants with translucent skin and multiple eyes shouted in languages Marla didn't understand, waving wares that looked like glowing stones or shifting liquids. It was overwhelming but thrilling. As she moved toward the colony's central area, Marla noticed a young woman leaning casually against a cargo crate, watching the arrivals with sharp, attentive eyes. Her sun-bleached hair fell in waves over a leather jacket patched with symbols of her family ranch. This was Riley, the daughter of one of the colony's most respected human settlers. Stories about her independence and bold spirit had spread even to newcomers like Marla. Riley's gaze lingered on Marla for a long moment. She could feel the nervous energy, the careful way Marla navigated the crowd. There was something different about her, something beyond appearances. Riley's curiosity grew with every step Marla took. Just then, a commotion erupted near the main docking bay. A small alien child had tripped, its delicate limbs tangled in the support wires of a hovering cargo drone. The child's cry was sharp, piercing the noise of the spaceport. People froze for a moment, unsure how to react. Without hesitation, Marla dashed forward. Her bag fell to the ground, forgotten, as she carefully lifted the alien child from the wires. Her movements were calm, precise, and full of care. She checked the child quickly for injuries, speaking softly in a soothing voice, even though she knew the alien couldn't understand her words. Riley watched in silence, impressed. While others whispered or turned away, Marla had acted. Her courage and empathy shone brighter than anyone's outward appearance ever could. The child's parent, a tall being with iridescent wings, fluttered down in relief. It whispered thanks in a soft, melodic language, and Marla just nodded, smiling gently. She returned the child to its parent and stepped back, brushing off the dust from her clothes. "You didn't have to do that," said Riley, walking over. Her tone was curious, not judgmental. "I didn't think anyone else would," Marla replied, her voice steady but soft. Riley nodded. "Most people don't." She paused, studying Marla's face. "I like that about you." Marla felt a small warmth spread through her chest. A simple sentence, but it mattered more than she expected. Someone here had seen her not just the way she looked, but the person she was. The rest of the spaceport was loud, chaotic, but Marla started to feel a little more at home. She found a small, quiet cafe tucked between two cargo warehouses. The air inside smelled of roasted beans and something sweet she didn't recognize. She took a seat near the window, watching the bustle outside. As she sipped a warm drink, Marla thought about her new life. She had left behind ridicule and narrow-mindedness, hoping to find a place where she could simply exist, be useful, and maybe even be respected. Talon 7 seemed harsh and wild, but maybe, just maybe, it could be a place that valued heart and courage over looks. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice. "You're Marla, right?" Riley said, leaning against the cafe doorway. Marla looked up, slightly startled. "Yes. Do I know you?" "Not yet," Riley replied, smiling faintly. But I've heard about you. Marla's heart skipped. The stories? She had hoped no one on this frontier planet would know about her past embarrassments. They weren't all good, Riley said quickly, reading her expression. But that doesn't matter. You did something today that most people wouldn't help someone in need without thinking twice. Marla blinked, unsure how to respond. Praise felt unfamiliar, almost strange. I like people who act, not people who gossip, Riley said, shrugging. I think we'll get along. For the first time that day, Marla smiled freely. I'd like that. The two of them watched the spaceport together in silence for a while. Outside, the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the landing pads. The colony was loud, chaotic, and full of life. Marla felt a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. Perhaps here, she could truly begin again. As night fell, the glow of lights from hovering drones and alien stalls lit the spaceport like a galaxy come to rest on Talon 7. Marla knew challenges awaited her. People might still whisper, some might even mock, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. Riley's presence was a quiet reassurance. She didn't need to say much, just being there, watching, and recognizing Marla's actions mattered. And that small recognition, Marla realized, could be the start of something bigger. The frontier was harsh, but it had its own way of rewarding courage and heart. Marla didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, she felt ready to face it. The colony of Talon 7 was alive with possibilities, and she was finally ready to claim her place among them. And somewhere in the chaos, Riley smiled to herself, certain she had just met someone extraordinary, someone who would not only survive this wild planet, but also inspire others in ways that few could imagine. The stars above Talon 7 twinkled faintly, as if acknowledging the start of something new. A friendship, a challenge, and perhaps even a story that would ripple across the frontier. The morning sun rose over Talon 7, casting long golden streaks across the colony. The twin suns made the metal buildings gleam, and the horizon shimmered with heat. The spaceport was quieter than yesterday, but the streets leading into the colony were already alive with settlers, traders, and farmers. Marla walked carefully, her travel bag slung over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the streets for the first place she might find work. She had heard whispers. Everyone seemed to talk about her appearance, though no one said it outright to her face. The colony valued strength, efficiency, and perfection. And Marla did not fit the mold. Her size had always been a point of ridicule back on Earth, and she had hoped that distance and a new world would shield her. But the whispers were already here. Look at her, a vendor muttered to his friend as she passed by. Does she really think she belongs here? She'll never make it on this planet, the friend said, shaking his head. Too slow. Marla's ears burned. She clenched her fists inside her coat pocket, taking a slow, steady breath. She had faced worse. If anything, the frontier had always rewarded courage more than appearances. She reminded herself that actions mattered more than words, and she refused to let whispers dictate her life. Her first stop was the colony's central hub, a place where settlers gathered for news, work assignments, and trade. People bustled around, exchanging supplies and gossip. Marla noticed Riley standing near the fountain, her sun-bleached hair catching the light. Riley smiled faintly as she saw Marla, and Marla returned it, grateful for a friendly face in a sea of judgment. Morning, Riley said as Marla approached. Ready to see what the colony is really like? Marla nodded. I think so. Though I have a feeling some people aren't ready for me. Riley chuckled softly. Some never are, but that won't matter when they see what you can do. They walked together toward the engineering district, a place filled with mechanical labs, drone repair shops, and makeshift workshops. Marla had some experience with mechanical work, though mostly basic, and she hoped it would help her find a role quickly. As they passed, a group of settlers smirked and whispered again. There she goes, one said. She'll break something if she touches it. Marla's cheeks flushed slightly, but she kept her head high. Riley stayed beside her, radiating confidence. as if silently saying, I see you. Don't let them see anything else. In the engineering district, Marla found a small workshop struggling to repair a series of malfunctioning agricultural drones. Sparks flew from exposed circuits, and a young engineer looked frustrated. Can I help? Marla asked timidly. The engineer glanced at her skeptically. You? I mean, sure. If you know what you're doing. I do, Marla said simply. She knelt by the nearest drone, examining its circuitry with careful attention. Sparks danced dangerously close, but her hands were steady. She identified a wiring error and corrected it, then recalibrated the sensors. The drone hummed to life, hovering smoothly above the workbench. A few settlers who had been watching gasped. She fixed it? One whispered. Yes, Marla replied quietly, brushing her hands on her coat. It wasn't too difficult. The young engineer stared, impressed. You really know what you're doing. I didn't expect, well, never mind. Thank you. Riley watched with a proud smile. See? She said softly. Actions matter more than words. You just proved it. Marla smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She knew the whispers wouldn't stop, but each small success gave her confidence. If she could show the colony her value through deeds, maybe, just maybe, she could change how they saw her. Later, the two of them wandered toward the colony square. A large crowd had gathered for the weekly marketplace, where settlers traded goods and stories. Vendors shouted. Aliens displayed strange glowing fruits, and the air was filled with the aroma of roasted grains and spices. As they walked, Marla noticed the subtle ways some colonists tried to embarrass her. One young woman nudged her friend and whispered loudly, Why is she even here? She can't do anything right. Marla's heart tightened, but she refused to react. Instead, she focused on the bustling market, the smells, the sights, the energy of people working together to survive and thrive on this wild planet. Suddenly, a loud clatter came from a nearby stall. One of the alien vendors had dropped a crate of fragile crystals. The crystals rolled across the floor, shattering into harmless but glittering pieces. Settlers gasped, but no one moved to help. Without hesitation, Marla ran forward. She gathered the crystals carefully, placing them back in the crate. She knelt on the ground, handling each piece as if it were precious. The alien vendor's multiple eyes widened in surprise and gratitude. Thank you, it said in melodic tones. Riley raised her eyebrows, impressed. You really don't wait for anyone else, do you? Marla shook her head. I just do what needs to be done. Word of her actions spread quickly through the marketplace. Some settlers began to murmur, curious about the woman who always seemed calm, capable, and kind, even under scrutiny, but not everyone was convinced. Later, a group of young men approached Marla while Riley was nearby. You think you belong here? One asked mockingly. Everyone knows Talon 7 is no place for someone like you. Marla straightened her back, meeting his gaze without fear. I belong wherever I choose, she said simply. The man blinked, clearly expecting her to flinch or stumble over words. When she didn't, he grumbled and walked away, muttering under his breath. Riley shook her head. Ignore them. They're not worth it. Marla smiled faintly. I've been ignored all my life. This is no different. As the day went on, Marla continued to prove her value. She helped a small group of children repair a hovering training drone, showing patience and care. She assisted an alien botanist in adjusting nutrient settings for a new crop. With every act, the whispers of mockery grew quieter, replaced slowly by curiosity and cautious admiration. By evening, Marla found herself back at the cafe she had discovered the day before. Riley joined her again, carrying a small package of roasted nuts and dried fruit. You did well today, Riley said, handing her the snack. Even with the whispers and the sneers, you kept your head high and helped people. That's rare. Marla bit into a piece of fruit and nodded. It felt good, actually. Like, I'm starting to belong here, just a little. Riley smiled warmly. You're more than belonging. You're changing how people see things, maybe even how they see themselves. That's the power of courage and heart. Marla's cheeks warmed at the compliment. She had never thought of herself as powerful or influential, but seeing the way Riley and even a few curious settlers looked at her now, she realized that strength came in many forms. Physical ability mattered less than courage, kindness, and intelligence. And in this new world, those qualities mattered more than appearances. As the twin suns set and the colony lights flickered on, Marla and Riley sat in comfortable silence, watching the bustle of Talon 7 carry on around them. The marketplace had quieted, but the energy of the colony remained, full of potential and life. Marla knew challenges would continue. Some colonists might never accept her. There would always be whispers, sneers, and judgments. But she also knew that for every mocker, there were people who could be inspired by her actions, by her courage, kindness, and determination. And with Riley's support, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The frontier was not an easy place, but it rewarded those who acted with heart and skill. And Marla's smile on her face, and determination in her heart, was ready to prove herself once more. The stars above Talon 7 shone like diamonds against the darkening sky, as if watching the story of a human's courage unfold on this wild, unforgiving planet. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Marla no longer feared them. She had survived ridicule, shown her worth, and earned a small measure of respect. That was enough to fuel her for the trials ahead and to continue building a life where actions mattered more than appearances. The morning light on Talon 7 spread across the colony, painting the metal buildings and dusty streets in shades of gold and bronze. The twin suns reflected off the solar panels atop every rooftop, giving the small town a strange, radiant glow. Today was no ordinary day. It was the day of the Frontier Harmony Festival, the colony's most important celebration. The festival was a tradition that honored settlers who embodied the best of humanity: courage, intelligence, and kindness. Every year, the colony chose someone to represent its ideals. For newcomers like Marla, it was a chance to show not only skill but heart. For some of the more judgmental settlers, it was an opportunity to see her fail, proving that she didn't belong. Marla walked alongside Riley toward the main square, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. She adjusted her coat and took a deep breath. "You ready for this?" Riley asked, a faint grin on her face. "I think so," Marla replied, her voice steady but soft. "Though I know some people hope I won't succeed." Riley shrugged. "Let them hope. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do today, not what they think." The colony square was alive with activity. Stalls lined the streets, offering food, goods, and small technological marvels. Drones hovered overhead, projecting holographic decorations. Humans and aliens alike moved through the space, celebrating their hard work and survival on this harsh frontier planet. A group of organizers gathered at the center of the square. They were announcing the first challenge of the festival, a problem-solving task involving the colony's failing water distribution system. Several pipes had cracked during the last sandstorm, and the settlers needed a solution to restore flow without waiting for outside help. The organizers explained the rules. Each participant had 1 hour to inspect the system, identify the problem, and propose a working solution. The person whose solution best combined creativity, efficiency, and teamwork would win the festival's top honor. Marla stepped forward, her heart pounding. She had worked on mechanical systems before, but nothing as complex as this. Around her, some settlers whispered, smirking, "She'll never manage it," one said. "Too clumsy, too slow." Marla ignored them, focusing on the task at hand. She knelt beside the first damaged pipe, examining the cracks carefully. The problem was clear. The pipes were old and brittle, and the connectors had weakened from the harsh climate. She took a deep breath and began sketching a plan in the dirt with a small stick. She would need to combine new connectors with a clever use of available materials to reinforce the pipes. But that wasn't all. Some pipes ran underground, inaccessible, without coordination. The task required not just intelligence but teamwork. Riley stayed nearby, observing quietly. She noticed how Marla's brow furrowed in concentration, how her hands moved deftly, even when covered in dust. Marla's approach was calm, methodical, and thoughtful, qualities few settlers seemed to expect from her. Other participants rushed forward, trying to appear confident, but their solutions were rushed and incomplete. Marla, however, moved carefully, inspecting every joint and listening to suggestions from nearby settlers. She quickly realized she could combine her solution with help from others, assigning tasks and giving clear instructions. Time passed quickly. Marla and a small group of helpers worked together to assemble the reinforced connectors and adjust the underground pipes. Sparks flew from welding tools, dust swirled around them, and the hum of hovering drones filled the air. Yet Marla remained focused, encouraging her helpers and adjusting the plan as needed. Some settlers began to notice. Whispers that had mocked her the day before now sounded uncertain. She might actually do it, one muttered. Finally, after nearly an hour of careful work, the system hummed to life. Water flowed through the pipes smoothly, reaching the fields and gardens that had been dry for days. The crowd erupted in applause. Even the skeptical settlers clapped, though some did so reluctantly. Marla wiped sweat from her brow, feeling a mix of relief and pride. She had faced the challenge, and her solution had worked. More than that, she had done it without needing to prove herself through speed or force, just through intelligence, collaboration, and patience. Riley stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You did it," she said simply. "You proved them wrong without even needing to fight them." Marla smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. "I just did what needed to be done." The organizers approached, congratulating her. "That's an impressive solution," one said. "You clearly understand both the technical and human aspects of the problem. Well done." Some settlers still looked doubtful. But the atmosphere in the square had shifted. People were no longer laughing at her. Instead, they were curious. They wanted to see what this newcomer could accomplish next. The festival continued with smaller tasks, from organizing supplies to helping aliens repair their trade machines. Marla moved from challenge to challenge, her confidence growing with each success. Riley stayed close, supporting her quietly, offering small hints when needed, and celebrating every accomplishment with a smile. By evening, the main challenge of the festival approached: the community puzzle, a task designed to test not just intelligence, but leadership and empathy. Settlers had to work together to restore a malfunctioning energy grid, but only one person could lead. The crowd gathered, waiting to see who would take charge. Marla hesitated briefly, glancing at Riley. Riley nodded encouragingly. That small gesture gave Marla the courage she needed. She stepped forward. "I'll lead," she announced. Her voice was calm but firm. "We need to work together, assign tasks, and communicate clearly. Everyone has a role to play, and every suggestion matters." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some settlers looked skeptical. Could she really lead them? Wasn't she too different? Marla ignored the whispers. She began organizing the volunteers, asking about their skills, listening to suggestions, and making adjustments. Slowly, the energy grid began to come back online. Sparks of light ran along the wires, systems hummed to life, and the crowd cheered as the colony's central power returned to full function. When the task was complete, the organizers stepped forward. "We have our winner," one said, smiling. "This year's Frontier Harmony Festival honors someone who combined intelligence, empathy, and leadership in a remarkable way. Marla, step forward." The crowd erupted in applause. Some settlers clapped grudgingly, others enthusiastically, and a few still muttered, but their words no longer mattered. Marla had proven herself through her actions. Riley rushed forward, hugging her gently. "I knew you could do it," she said, her voice full of pride. Marla felt a tear slide down her cheek, not from sadness, but from relief and joy. For the first time, She felt truly accepted on Talon 7 not because she fit a mold, but because she had shown what she could do, and who she truly was. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the colony square, Marla stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd. She realized that this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges, more skeptics, and more obstacles, but she also knew that she had the courage, intelligence, and heart to face them all. And somewhere in the crowd, Riley's eyes met hers, full of admiration and trust. That bond, forged quietly but strongly, was a reminder that human connection, empathy, and determination could overcome prejudice and doubt. The frontier was harsh, unpredictable, and full of surprises. But it was also a place where courage and heart could shine brighter than whispers and mockery. Marla had proven that today, and as the stars above Talon 7 began to twinkle in the night sky, the settlers of the colony began to see something extraordinary. A human who refused to be defined by appearance, but instead by action, kindness, and determination. Marla smiled, feeling the warmth of accomplishment and the excitement of what was yet to come. The frontier had tested her, and she had passed. The evening air on Talon 7 was cooler than the hot days, carrying a soft, dry scent of sand and metal. The twin moons had begun to rise, casting a silvery glow over the colony. After the excitement of the Frontier Harmony Festival, the square had emptied, leaving only the soft hum of energy grids and distant machinery. Marla and Riley walked slowly along the edge of the colony, heading toward the hills that overlooked the settlement. The dust crunched beneath their boots, and the stars above shone like scattered diamonds against the black sky. "I still can't believe today," Marla said softly, her voice almost lost in the wind. "I never thought I'd be recognized here. Not like this." Riley glanced at her, smiling. "You earned it, Marla. Not because anyone gave it to you, but because of what you did, how you led, how you cared. People notice that, even if they try not to at first." Marla felt a warmth spread through her chest at Riley's words. For the first time since arriving on Talon 7, she felt a deep sense of belonging. She had always known that appearances could be deceiving. But here, actions mattered more than looks, and she had shown hers. They reached a high ridge overlooking the colony. Lights twinkled below, and the wind carried the faint sounds of distant conversation. The view was breathtaking, the frontier stretching endlessly, filled with possibility. Riley sat on a rock, patting the space beside her. "Come on. Sit. Look at this. This is what we're defending. What we're building. This is home." Marla hesitated for a moment, then sat beside her. The two of them were silent, taking in the scene. The frontier felt alive in a way she had never experienced before. Harsh and beautiful at the same time. "You know," Riley began, her voice thoughtful. "Most people only see the surface. They notice size, looks, the way someone moves, but they miss what really matters." Marla nodded. "I've known that my whole life, but I didn't think I'd find someone who sees it too. Someone who actually understands. Someone." Riley's eyes met hers. "I see it, Marla. I see you." The words were simple, but their weight pressed gently against Marla's chest. She smiled, a genuine smile that had grown stronger since her arrival on Talon 7. "Thank you," she whispered. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the colony below. Marla realized that her life had changed not just because she had proven herself at the festival, but because she had found someone who believed in her without question. Riley's trust and admiration were a gift she had never expected. "I have to ask," Marla said finally, breaking the quiet. "Why did you choose to be my friend? Most people, they would have just whispered or laughed." Riley shrugged, leaning back on her hands. "Maybe I don't care about what most people think. Maybe I just see value in people who act with heart. You helped others today, even when they didn't deserve it, or maybe because they didn't. That matters more than anything." Marla laughed softly, a sound that mingled with the soft wind. I guess that's true. It feels good to be seen for what I can do, not what I look like. Riley nodded. Exactly. And it's more than just being seen. You inspire people. Even the ones who doubted you, some of them are starting to realize there's more to life than appearances. Marla thought about the settlers she had encountered, some still skeptical but others who had begun to whisper less and watch more. Perhaps, she realized, her presence was already making a difference, simply by being herself. Do you think the colony can really change? Marla asked quietly. Riley smiled faintly, looking at the horizon. I think it already has, in small ways. Change doesn't happen overnight. But it starts with one person showing others what's possible. You did that today. You are that change. Marla felt a tear prick her eye. But she blinked it away. She had never imagined that one day, someone would see her not for her size, but for her courage, her intelligence, and her heart. And yet, here she was, sitting beside Riley, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known. The two of them spent hours walking along the ridge, talking quietly about their lives, dreams, and fears. Marla shared stories of her childhood, the times she had been judged for her appearance, the moments when she had learned to rely on her wits and kindness to survive. Riley listened attentively, occasionally offering her own stories of life on Talon 7, of the challenges and triumphs of growing up on the frontier, of the expectations placed on her as a rancher's daughter. The stories wove together, forming a tapestry of shared experiences and mutual understanding. As night deepened, the moons rose higher, their silver light casting long shadows across the ridge. The stars reflected in their eyes, and Marla realized how much she had come to trust Riley, not just as a friend, but as someone who believed in her completely. You know, Riley said suddenly, there's a saying back home. True strength isn't measured by what you carry on the outside, but what you carry inside. Marla smiled. That sounds exactly like today. Exactly, Riley replied. She paused, then said softly, I think you're stronger than most people on Talon 7, Marla. Not just because of what you did today, but because of who you are. Marla felt a warmth she couldn't describe. All the mockery, all the doubts from the first day, seemed to fade away under the quiet power of Riley's words. For the first time in her life, she felt fully recognized, not for appearances, not for expectations, but for her true self. The night passed slowly as they sat together, the frontier stretching endlessly before them. The colony below slept, unaware of the quiet moment of connection unfolding above. And in that silence, Marla felt hope not just for herself, but for the people of Talon 7, who might learn to see beyond appearances, and to value courage, kindness, and intelligence above all. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Marla realized that her bond with Riley had grown stronger than she had expected. It was no longer just admiration or friendship, it was trust, respect, and a deep understanding of one another. You've changed my world, Riley, Marla said quietly, watching the horizon. You've changed mine too, Riley replied. And in that moment, Marla understood something vital. The frontier was not just about survival, challenges, or proving oneself. It was about connection, understanding, and showing the best of what humanity could be. And in Riley, she had found a companion who embodied that truth. As the suns rose over the colony, casting golden light over the metal buildings and dusty streets, Marla felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Frontier Harmony Festival had ended, but her journey on Talon 7 was only beginning. And with Riley by her side, she knew that she could face any obstacle with courage, ingenuity, and heart. The frontier stretched endlessly before them, wild and unpredictable, yet full of promise. And in that vast, untamed world, Marla and Riley began to carve a story of hope, friendship, and human strength, one that would inspire others to look beyond appearances and value what truly mattered. For Marla, the whispers and mockery of the past had faded into nothingness. What remained was the quiet power of action, the warmth of friendship, and the certainty that, on Talon 7, she had found a place where she truly belonged. And as they descended back into the colony together, their shadows stretching behind them, Marla realized that this bond, their connection, trust, and shared courage, was more valuable than any recognition, any applause, or any festival. It was a reminder of what made humans remarkable: the ability to see, understand, and lift one another, even in a world that often focused on the wrong things. And in that quiet, steadfast way, the colony itself began to shift, imperceptibly but surely, toward a future where heart and courage mattered more than appearance, and where one act of kindness could ripple across an entire world. The morning sun rose over Talon 7, painting the colony in warm, golden light. The twin suns reflected off the metal rooftops, casting long shadows across the dusty streets. The day felt different, almost magical, as if the planet itself knew that something important was about to happen. Marla stepped out of her small dwelling, taking a deep breath of the dry, crisp air. Today was the day the colony would celebrate the results of the Frontier Harmony Festival. Her mind wandered over the past weeks, the whispers, the challenges, the moments of doubt, and the small victories that had brought her here. Every step had taught her something about herself, about courage, and about what it truly meant to belong. Riley appeared at the edge of the path, a bright smile on her face. "Ready for today?" she asked. Marla nodded, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "I think so. I just hope I can inspire more than just a few people." "You already have," Riley said confidently. "Now it's time for everyone else to see it." The main square of the colony was alive with settlers, aliens, and children running between stalls. Banners fluttered in the wind, and the smell of roasted grains and fresh bread filled the air. The square had been prepared for the festival's final celebration, a ceremony recognizing those who had truly embodied the best of human values: kindness, ingenuity, and courage. The crowd gathered as the organizers called for attention. "Today, we honor someone who has shown extraordinary courage, intelligence, and heart," one of the elders announced. "Someone who reminds us that appearances do not define worth, and that true strength comes from within." Marla felt her heart pound. She glanced at Riley, who gave her an encouraging nod. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, letting her actions, not her nerves, guide her. The elder continued. "This year's honoree is a newcomer to Talon 7, who has already demonstrated leadership, empathy, and skill in the face of challenge. This person has not only solved problems but has inspired others through quiet determination and courage." Marla's gaze swept across the crowd. Faces that had whispered and doubted now looked at her with curiosity, respect, and in some cases, admiration. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, the feeling of being seen for who she truly was. "And the person we honor today is Marla." A cheer rose from the crowd. Children clapped, settlers smiled, and even some of the skeptical adults nodded in acknowledgement. Riley ran forward and hugged Marla tightly. "You did it," she whispered. Marla laughed softly, feeling tears of joy in her eyes. "We did it," she corrected, glancing around at the people who had worked alongside her. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us." The elder handed Marla a small medallion, engraved with the colony's emblem, and the words, "For courage, kindness, and human ingenuity." It was a symbol of acceptance, of recognition, and of the frontier's unique way of valuing heart over appearance. Marla lifted the medallion and held it to her chest. The weight of it felt light compared to the burden of years spent feeling invisible or judged. She had proven to herself, and to the colony, that strength was measured by deeds, empathy, and intelligence, not by size or appearance. After the ceremony, settlers approached her with questions and praise. A few children asked for her advice on building drones, while other adults complimented her leadership during the festival. Marla realized that her actions had already begun to change minds. People were starting to value substance over superficial judgments. Riley stayed beside her, watching proudly. "See?" she said softly. "It's more than recognition. It's inspiration." Marla nodded. I just hope it lasts. That people continue to remember what really matters. It will, Riley said firmly. Because what you've shown is undeniable. Actions speak louder than words. And you've proven it to everyone here. As the day continued, Marla walked through the colony, noticing small signs of change. Settlers who had once whispered now smiled and greeted her. Children who had been timid now approached her with questions, eager to learn. Even the aliens seemed to regard her with respect, having observed her consistent kindness and skill. The sense of belonging that Marla had felt with Riley grew stronger as she moved through the colony. She realized that her journey had not just been about proving herself, it had been about creating connections, building trust, and showing that one person could make a difference. By afternoon, the celebration had shifted to a communal gathering. Tables of food and drink were set up, and settlers, humans, and aliens alike shared stories of triumph and survival. Marla found herself laughing, telling stories of the challenges she had faced, and listening to others' tales of courage. For the first time, she felt like an integral part of the colony. Not an outsider, not a newcomer, but a valued member of this frontier family. Riley nudged her gently. Come on, she said. There's someone I want you to meet. Curious, Marla followed her to a quiet area near the edge of the square. There, a group of children were building a small training drone. One of them, a shy boy, looked up and smiled. Marla, he asked. Can you show me how to make it fly? Marla knelt beside him, guiding his hands and explaining how to balance the controls. Of course, she said. You just have to be patient and listen to the machine. It tells you what it needs if you pay attention. The boy's face lit up as the drone lifted from the ground and hovered steadily. Nearby, children cheered, and Marla realized that teaching others sharing knowledge was another way to leave a mark on the colony. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the square, the festival came to a close. Marla and Riley stood together on a small hill overlooking the colony. The twin moons glowed softly, illuminating the buildings and streets below. You've changed this place, Riley said quietly. Not just by what you did today, but by showing them who you really are. They'll remember it, and it will inspire others to act with courage and kindness too. Marla looked at the colony, feeling a deep sense of peace. I never thought I'd belong anywhere like this, but here, I feel like I can make a difference. You already have, Riley said, smiling, and tomorrow, you'll continue to do so. The frontier is full of challenges, but you've shown that heart, intelligence, and courage can overcome anything. Marla took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. She realized that the whispers, the mockery, and the doubts of the past had no power over her now. What mattered was what she did, how she treated others, and the courage she showed in facing challenges. The colony below continued to hum with life, and Marla knew that her journey was only beginning. She had proven herself. Yes, but more importantly, she had inspired others to see beyond appearances, to value action and heart above all. Riley took her hand gently. Ready for the next adventure? She asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. Marla laughed, squeezing her hand. Always. Together, they looked out over Talon 7, the frontier planet alive with possibilities. The wind carried the faint hum of machinery, the laughter of settlers, and the soft whispers of aliens moving through the colony. It was a world full of challenges, but also full of hope. Marla realized that the true victory of the festival was not the medallion or the applause. It was the transformation she had inspired in the colony. People were beginning to see beyond superficial judgments. They were learning that courage, empathy, and intelligence mattered more than anything else. And in that moment, Marla understood something vital. The frontier was not just about survival or success. It was about connection, understanding, and the strength of human character. She had shown that humans could thrive not through force or appearances, but through ingenuity, kindness, and courage. As night fully descended, Marla and Riley walked back into the colony together, their shadows stretching long behind them. Settlers still lingered, sharing stories and celebrating, and children ran past with laughter. Marla smiled, feeling the warmth of belonging, the pride of accomplishment, and the quiet power of making a difference. She had arrived on Talon 7 as an outsider, judged for her appearance, and now she was a recognized, respected, and valued member of the colony. The frontier was wild and unpredictable, but Marla had proven that humans could shine in any world, not through size, strength, or appearance, but through heart, courage, and ingenuity. And with Riley by her side, she knew that together they could face any challenge, inspire any heart, and continue shaping Talon 7 into a place where true human values thrived. The twin moons of Talon 7 glimmered in the night sky, watching over the colony. And beneath their soft light, Marla felt a quiet certainty. The frontier was no longer just a place of challenge. It was a canvas, and she was ready to paint it with courage, kindness, and hope. The whispers of doubt and mockery were gone, replaced with admiration and curiosity. And in that transformation, Marla realized the truth of the frontier. That humanity's greatest power lay not in appearances or strength, but in heart, intellect, and the courage to be oneself. With Riley beside her, Marla stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever adventures awaited. The story of the plus-size bride, once mocked, had become a story of triumph, inspiration, and the true power of humanity. And Talon 7 would never forget it.